Okay, let's get started. Sorry, I got a little bit of a late start here. Welcome, Lily. How are you today? Hopefully good. Hopefully you can hear me. Make sure my mic's on here. Good. Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys for being so patient with me. I know I kind of had to shift this a half hour um, forward because of my schedule. It's just been really crazy. So I appreciate your patience and kind of working with me today as well. So welcome to week 2, session 1. We kind of left off the last session yesterday with talking about your assignment 2. How is everything going with that? Any questions or concerns so far, Lily? You're the only one in here so far. Doing good? All right. All right, so if you missed the lecture, definitely go in the recording and listen to the recording session from yesterday. I did a demo, a step-by-step demo. I didn't finish it all the way, so I'm going to do that today and go over some other information that is relative to your upcoming assessment as well. All right, so we're going to actually talk about symbols, and if you have any feedback in regards to, wanting feedback for your work that you've done thus far, we can definitely take a look at that. Just a little review here of the learning objectives that you'll be learning this week, kind of walking away from. You're going to be hitting upon these through your discussions and your projects as well. And your quiz. Describe 3 ways that digital illustration software programs are utilized in the field. Define how dynamic symbols can streamline artwork creation. Identify appropriate actions to increase productivity and production speed, and create a plan of the design process for a custom vector illustration. So hopefully you guys are developing that plan. Welcome, Michael. Going forward here, maybe starting your projects for assignment 2. Hello. We're going to kind of go, I'm going to go back to where we left off the last time that we met, because I didn't quite go through all the steps that you needed to do for this particular assignment here. So give me 1 second. I've been fighting some allergies here, I guess. I took some Claritin today, so hopefully that'll help. Just that time of the year, I guess. All right, I actually ended up changing the typeface that I had before. I think this reads a little bit better and kind of goes a little bit more unified with the elements that I have. In the demo, I kind of started creating this vintage style poster for a play. That was kind of the concept that I took for this demo. And in doing so, I kind of chose this nice theme of this flat vintage style look. And I went through each step to kind of show you how I traced out the bird and the trees and kind of added that in there, as well as the headline. So, you have to think about the typeface that you're going to use. Is it unified with the actual style of the illustration that you're bringing all together? It should kind of all unify. Think about the headline or the cover name or the website banner. What headlines are you going to be using? Keep it simple. Don't have too much body copy. It shouldn't really have a ton of body copy on a lot of the details that you're putting on here. This would be a great example of a poster, just very simple. And so, at this point, I can definitely keep adding stuff and maybe even long shadows, not long shadows, but highlights, lowlights. But I'm going to keep it pretty simple at this point. I'm just going to show you really quickly the next steps in this assignment here. So what we didn't get to the last time that we met, and let me switch back to your assignment details so you can see what I'm seeing. All right, and don't forget, this is a this is the first draft. So page 2 will have the PDF of your first draft. It doesn't have to be the refined final. Okay, so you'll be submitting your inspirational pieces, and your first draft is a 2-page PDF. On the first page, assemble 2 to 3 images that show examples of the illustration style you are aiming for. Page 2 will be the PDF of your first draft. Create an Illustrator file to the dimensions of the projects of your choice. The first draft will need to include, at a minimum, a major design component, so persons, objects, scenery, etc. That's kind of what I was doing with the egret. A plan composition, so at least has to show something that you're kind of planning in terms of the overall layout and composition. The text you'll be using, a deliberate color palette, and the use of clearly defined techniques shown in your inspiration. The links of the 2 video tutorials that you are going to be providing in the comments section should unify with the style and the look that you're going for, like the techniques that you're kind of going to explore as well. Okay, so keep this in mind, that this is your first draft. It will need to be complete enough to evaluate, but you will have a chance to make changes, add details, and refine the techniques for your final in week 4. So just a few things here that we didn't quite cover at the end of the lecture last night. So saving it out as the native file, obviously, so you can go back and change it if need be, and then you're going to save it as a PDF version of your work in progress. Combine the illustration and the inspiration as listed above, and identify which project you have decided to do. Submit as a 2-page PDF. You can name it as such, assignment 2, and then in the assignment comment section, don't forget to place in the provided links to the tutorial videos you watched. Okay, so with that being said, let's go back to the poster here, and let's just pretend like this is ready to go. We're going to go File, Export, or Save As. I'm sorry, File, Save As, and then Adobe PDF is what you choose. I'm just going to save this to my desktop, make sure it's named appropriately. And excuse me, guys. Ooh. The PDF, and let me grab that real quick here. Let's see. So my PDF's on my actual computer here. Let me zoom out so you can see it. Open the PDF. Just make sure it looks good. Here's what mine looks like. Okay. Now you'll be placing this into your page 2 of what you'll be submitting this week. So let's go back to InDesign, and let's go ahead and open up what we were working on yesterday. Zoom out here. You can even add, I would probably add your name up here. Just kind of like class number and then assignment 2, if I could spell. And then you can also add in here, I'm doing the poster with a play if you want to kind of make that known here. Whoops. Sometimes it'll be just kind of an obvious thing, but you know, maybe you'll want to specify that when you submit your work. It's however you want to do it. As far as, you know, as long as you have the components that they're asking for. The next thing I'm going to do is just going to draw a rectangle frame box. I'm going to do a Command D, which is a file place. And I'm going to place that PDF that I just saved on my desktop as my first draft here. Object fitting, fit content proportionately. If this needs I believe I have like a border here. It's probably not going to show, so we'll just give it a border. Let's make it easy. We'll just give it a stroke. Very thin stroke. And you can put, you can write a little text box here and put draft 1 or draft number 1. All right. Hi, guides. There we go. So that would be your draft on page 2. This is your inspiration with the links cited, if you can find it. Like I said yesterday when I was looking these up on, excuse me, Pinterest, some of them really didn't give a good citation for those. So as long as you're citing them in Pinterest and then, having that link provided, you're good. You don't have to do it in InDesign, Lily. Yeah, I said this yesterday. If you want to do this in Illustrator, go ahead. It's just always good habit to go back to InDesign if you can, but it's no big deal. You won't get deducted points. So it's up to you. You can have, you don't have to do 8.5 by 11. You can do a different size. Obviously you don't want it to be big enough to see your information, but you can do like a square size, like 8 inches by 8 inches. Something cool like that. I just did something very similar to, just a general 8.5 by 11. The only bad thing when you do the squares, you might not be able to see depending on the orientation. Like if this was on a 8 by 8 square, this poster would be reading pretty small viewing wise. And then when you're ready, don't forget you have those video links too. Don't forget that. Export those video links. If you don't want to forget them and want to put them maybe somewhere on the first page, maybe down below. The book cover would just be the front cover, but that would be something that you might want to explore later once you're done in regards to maybe making a back part of it for your portfolio. But don't kill yourself over it, because then you'll have to be doing the spine and like all that other detail work. Just kind of keep it simple and do the cover. Yep. Good question for sure. So maybe down here, just do like a little line and then have the 2 inspirational video links. Number 1 and number 2. Just so it reminds you that it's there, and then you can copy that into the comments section. So when you submit this, you're going to copy and paste those links of the 2 videos that you were inspired by into the comments section, okay? When you're ready to save out, just save out as a PDF. Now I'm in InDesign. Same would hold true anywhere else in regards to saving out as a PDF, just maybe a different way. And then all you would need to do is just upload that final file. Excuse me. Okay, so let me open up that final file so you can at least see what it looks like. If I get all my stuff kind of closed out here. You can use any dimension, yep. And if you're kind of stuck, you don't know where to start, look up, typical book dimensions online. If you go to a specific publisher website, they might have, or self-publishing websites, they might have, some ideas of different sizes that you would be able to print or create a layout in. I know 9 by 6 is a pretty common book theme. Having a cough attack, sorry guys. All right, so this is what the PDF would look like. I have swatches in there, inspirational pictures, and then my draft. Any questions about that? So just think about how you're going to bring that style into your composition, how you're going to be inspired by that to bring that same style into your concept, and then utilizing the tools in Illustrator that we kind of already went over to trace out and to create in that style as close as possible. Now, I wouldn't go out and find a poster and try to trace the same poster. You know, obviously you want some creativity in there, and that's where your design process steps in. So you don't want to emulate, you know, and totally carbon copy something, but you want to be inspired by it. So if it's like a specific style, you want to make sure that you're creating the original, you know, illustrations, typography, color, and all that to unify it with that same theme, same style. I don't know, guys. I think I'm gonna die here. I'm coughing like crazy. Try not to cough, but it's one of those things, especially when you're talking. All right, so no questions about that? That was kind of like the finishing up of that project. Just don't forget to provide the two links, like I said, that you're inspired by. Oops. Nope. Man, this is not looking good, guys. I'm telling you. All right, let's go back to my slides here. Let's see if there's any way I can view this in a different way here. There we go. Oops. Didn't do that. All right. Let's go forward with, okay, so now that we got that assessment 2, let's take a look at assessment 2 here. It's actually a quiz. Let me go back to, sorry, I'm flipping back and forth here. Assessment 2. So this is a this is a quiz worth 50 points. And this is going to cover symbols and how they can streamline artwork creation, identifying appropriate actions to increase productivity and production speed. So go ahead and read through the career relevancy. I won't read that word for word. You guys can definitely check that out. So basically, this is just you're taking the quiz. You're going to take the quiz based on symbols and action. Now, don't forget, in your modules for week 2, let me go through that here. There is some great helpful information, supportive materials, required articles, and websites to view or videos to view. So week 2 here, let's see, actually not a lot here. Drawing vector graphics is part of that, the process, the building, creative preparation, building vector shapes is kind of required to watch in week 2. Drawing vector graphics inventory, optional links here. And then, you know, you might even want to kind of, I'm not sure if this is, oh, just went forward. Sorry, guys. Go through here. Let's see. Good question. All right, so let me get back to you on that. Let me see here. I think it's just a multiple choice. I just wanted to look in here because it talks about symbols, but I don't see anything in here talking about symbols. Oh, shapes. So I'm wondering, All right. So I'm going to give you a some resources here for this quiz in regards to the symbols. Take a look at a video here actually today. If you have any questions, let me know. But it doesn't look like anything is covering that in week 2. I just wanted to see. All right, let's go back. I had a question about, the assessment 2. Daily checkpoints are working out, right? Because those are now links to actual websites and not videos anymore. Hopefully that'll be okay as we go forward here. We had some issues with the YouTube links in week 1 not working. Hopefully that's not going to be a trend. Okay, so this assessment may be different from the others you have had. The purpose of this is to provide you with a new course information and to provide clarity. Consider this an additional opportunity for learning. You have unlimited time to complete the questions, and you can submit your work multiple times until the assessment closes at 11:59. Let me see, because let me see here. I'm going to preview this. I didn't preview this yet. I thought it was an actual quiz. Let me see what pops up so I can answer your question a little bit better here. Okay, so basically you're going to get some material to read through about dynamic and static symbols, and then you're going to take a multiple choice. So many questions there are. Best answer questions. I think there's 9 of them. Yep. All right. Does that make sense? So you're not doing a project. Yeah. Okay. I apologize, you guys. I am not feeling good today with my cough. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about symbols here, and hopefully that'll kind of get you started for this quiz, kind of get you have a better sense of what we're talking about when we talk about symbols. Have you guys ever worked with symbols before? You may have. I know, I'm trying to, guys. I feel like, it's like when you're at church and you start laughing and you shouldn't laugh, and it just makes you laugh even more. It's like coughing. You can't cough throughout the lecture, so your body wants you to cough so hard. It's like the worst thing that you want to have happen, it happens. So and I took a Claritin today. I was hoping that would help. I don't know. Yeah, and you know what? I'm not sick. It's just, I think it's an allergy thing. So yeah, just have to go through it. All right, you guys, have you ever played around with symbols in Illustrator? Oh, Lily, yeah, so you totally, you have it worse than I do, so I can't even complain. Okay, Michael, you have? Okay, cool. Yeah, symbols are pretty cool. You can, work with symbols in Illustrator, and it is one way to streamline your artwork creation. You can create symbols out of an object that you can actually use in multiple places in your design. So having these reusable copies will save valuable design time and reduce the file size as well. You can use, symbols can be composed of all sorts of elements, so like icons, logos, pieces of artwork that you need repeated packaging elements from mock-ups, et cetera, all fit into that category of what a symbol is. All right, so yeah, it's pretty cool. There is dynamic symbols, and dynamic symbols versus static. So there's static and dynamic. But with dynamic symbols, you can modify each appearance of that symbol. So any edits or updates made to that symbol will automatically transfer over to any place that symbol has been used. So the dynamic symbols can have the same master shape, but each instance of the symbol can have a modified appearance. This way, this can actually save you time and many steps, as the symbol instances automatically become modified when you make changes to the master shape. So, just think about this. If you made one change to the symbol and you couldn't change the rest, and you're making this pattern in the background, how much time are you wasting kind of going back and repasting those shapes or placing them? So this way you don't have to. It kind of updates it. It's almost like it links itself to it. So this way all the symbol instances receive the new modification but maintain their own specific modification as well. Yeah, exactly. Yep, you're right. Sometimes TV shows some artwork in background or symbols in Illustrator. Yep. So a lot of things that you can use Illustrator for. So you can modify the instance of a symbol by using the direct selection tool. This will not change the master symbol. This is a few things to keep in mind when working with dynamic symbols. You can create a new symbol from the revised version by dragging it into the symbols panel. You can create static symbols from most Illustrator objects, including paths, compound paths, text objects, raster images, mesh objects, and groups of objects. You cannot create a symbol from linked art or some groups, such as groups of graphs. And when creating dynamic symbols, however, do not use text, placed images, or meshed objects. I'm going to keep it simple. Symbols are also used for animation purposes. So you have, in Adobe Animate and Flash files, they will most likely be set as a movie clip based on the scenarios. So you kind of have to think about, that's kind of getting into a little bit more of a different category there, but they can be used for animation purposes. So there's two different kinds. So if anybody were to ask you what a symbol is an art object that you can reuse in a document. For example, if you create a symbol from a flower, you can then add instances of that symbol multiple times to your artwork without actually adding the complex art multiple times. Each symbol instance is linked to the symbol in the symbols panel or to a symbols library. Using symbols can save you time and greatly reduce file size. You can reuse it. That's what's nice about it. That's the advantage. You don't have to restart. You can go back and reuse it. There's static and dynamic. We just talked about that. So know the differences between them. Recycling, upcycling. So dynamic symbols were static. So dynamic symbols symbols that can share a master shape, but different instances of the symbol can have a dynamically modified appearance. If the master shape is modified, symbol instances receive the new modification, but maintain their own modifications as well. The dynamic symbol feature makes symbols more powerful by allowing use of appearance overrides in its instances. It keeps its relation with the master symbol intact. An appearance edits include colors, gradients, and patterns. So you have kind of like this example here with this little master play button. And you can change the visual appearances, kind of update them in a way where it goes from static to more of a dynamic look. Dynamic symbols have a plus sign, so you'll know the differences between which one's static and which one's dynamic. 90% of the time symbols should be dynamic. Looks like a little ampersands here. All right, so let me go and actually show you real quick. Go back in here into my file that I was just showing you. Any questions about that so far? I'm going to show you a video too, so. All right. So let's open up symbols. So I'm going to go up to Window and choose Symbols. I know, what, somewhere in here. Let's see here. Oh, man. There's my symbols. Must be in here somewhere. Pull up my layers. It's in there. Just put all these back in here. Okay. I reset this here. There we go. It was being hidden back behind my chat box. That's why I couldn't see it. I'm like, where did it go? It was hiding. Okay, I have these big chat boxes here that it's hard to see behind. All right, so symbols, there, yours might look a little different. Mine, I have just some defaulted ones here. If you upper right hand, click this upper right preset box, flyout box, I should say, you can actually go and open your symbols library. It has tons of little symbols. You can actually also import symbols as well, but these are ones that you could check out. They have 3D symbols. And these are already pre-made. So say you wanted, a sunshine or whatever. Oops. Open up and then, oops, sorry. Let me get on the layer here. That's actually, you're going to see it. Drag and drop, and you actually have this symbol that you can kind of play around with. You can make it larger, you can make it smaller, all that good stuff. So there are pre-made symbols in here. What you want to kind of play around with is creating your own symbol. So like, let's say, well, actually there might be a symbol in here. Let me see, nature. So I'm looking at my nature picture here. Like say if I wanted to do this grass. Oh, here's trees too. These trees. If I wanted to do these trees. The only bad thing about these is like if you ever want to undo this, you need to expand and, as far as the color goes. Oh, actually, let me go back. I'm not going to take that one. I'm going to take, let's try. Let me go pick something else. I want something. This is something I actually downloaded myself, so you might not have this. This is called Grime Pack. So it gives you some like textured looks, some coffee cup stains and some interesting things here. I just thought it was kind of cool. I'm not sure if this is like cracks that you can put in there. But these are all symbols. Now, if you wanted to create your own symbol, yep, they're the one that I just imported in here. They're free. Yep, I just downloaded it, and I downloaded the Florid Vector Pack as well. There's like different, totally different. There's banners, logo elements. Some of them are kind of cheesy, so you kind of have to like pick and choose throughout here. Textures. Textures is great, something I could definitely use on here. But watch what happens when I pull the textures over. I can make them bigger, smaller, depending on what I'm doing. And another thing I can do is create my own symbol. So let's say if I want to copy, I want this symbol here, but I want it to be in the style that I set it into. So, you know, I want it to be bigger like this. And then I want it to have, I want it to be a big block of texture. Oops. Yeah, it's kind of cool. We can play around with it. Oops. I can pick it without touching this. Okay, so let's say I want it to be this big as a symbol. I'm going to shift select all three of these. I'm going to go up to symbols. Oh, sorry, down there. There's my symbol box right here. And then all I have to do, I'm going to group this, and then I can drag, after I group it, drag it right in here. When I drag it in there, after I group it, this window comes up. So I'm going to name this Blue Regret Texture. And instead of a movie clip, I'm going to choose graphic. Now this is where you have the choice between dynamic and static. I would say keep it dynamic. If you make any changes to this, it will automatically update it. Click OK. Now you see if I delete this, watch what happens to the symbol. It still stays there. So all I need to do is just drag and drop it over here, and it has all the instances that I needed to in there. Now let's say if I want to change this and I put an effect on it, like let's say, oh actually let's make it, let's go to my appearance. Let's dial the opacity down a little bit here so it's not as crazy. Oops. Now if I were to go back to this and drop it, see how much darker it is? So I'm gonna trash this. Oops. So now, oops. Just gonna update it. I'm having a hard time selecting all of this for some reason. Let me undo this. Drag and drop. What I would do is just kind of, you can edit this too. I'm trying to figure out how to edit this. Actually, let me pull this in first. Let me undo this, delete it. Copy it back over here. I'm gonna just put texture. Graphic, dynamic, we're good. Okay. So this one, I'll just trash. I'm gonna trash this one. So anytime I make an update, it automatically will, you know, kind of make those changes. So I'm going to make a special. Let's do a little Gaussian blur on it. Oh, dial it down a little bit here. Make it a little blurry. Okay. Oops. And I know it's dynamic because it has texture here. So we can make a change to this. Oops, select all. Like Gaussian blur. Go back to your layered file. Oops. There we go. And then automatically updates it so it's blurry. And then anytime you place it on here, it's going to give that blur to it. Kind of like a synced update of sorts. I give a little texture in there. So that's kind of what symbols are, you know, helpful for. You don't have to, you can make some really cool pattern textures. Doesn't have to be full 100% specific pattern. It could be a texture in the background, for example. Any questions about that? Nope. So you guys have played around with that before? Yes. Okay. Yeah, so just check out what symbols you have. You can play around with that. I'm going to play a quick video here, and it's basically what I just covered, just a little different in detail. I think it might be helpful for you guys. It's like 7 minutes. So let's take a look.
In this movie, I'll show you how to create and rename symbols. If you have access to the exercise files, you'll find one called Photoshop Shapes.ai. And if you bring up the symbols panel, you can see that it contains tons and tons of symbols that I've acquired over the years from Photoshop's custom shape tool. And for those of you who don't have access to this file, let me show you how you can put one together for yourself. I'll go ahead and switch over to Photoshop, and then I'll drop down to the near bottom of the toolbox here. Click and hold on the shape tool and select the custom shape tool. And then what you want to do is go up to the shape option here in the options bar and click on it, and you'll see that you have a variety of different shapes that you can choose from. So for example, I could go ahead and grab the fleur-de-lis if I wanted to, and then just drag inside of my image like so. And if you want to constrain the proportions of the artwork so you don't end up stretching it, then you press and hold the Shift key until you finish drawing the shape. Now, that might seem like a cool trinket, but A, it's something that's missing from Illustrator, and B, you have access to a lot more artwork than these simple shapes here. And you can get to everything that ships along with Photoshop by clicking on this little gear icon and choosing all from the menu. That's going to go ahead and replace everything that's already here, so instead of clicking append, just go ahead and click on the OK button. And you'll see this very long list of shapes like so. And then I might grab one such as crown 2, and I'll go ahead and press the escape key to hide that panel, and then I'll draw the crown next door to the fleur-de-lis while pressing the Shift key. To get this artwork over to Illustrator, you want to get the black arrow tool, which is the path selection tool. You can also get to it by pressing the A key. And then if we want to select both shapes here, then I'll go ahead and click this guy, the crown, because currently these objects are in different shape layers. And I'll press Control X or Command X on the Mac in order to cut that shape. Then I'll go ahead and click on this fleur-de-lis for a moment here, just to make sure it's selected, and I'll press Control V or Command V on the Mac. And notice that places the two shapes on the same shape layer, which is essential if you want to select it both. And then you can shift click on the fleur-de-lis in order to select it as well. And then you want to press Control K or Command K on the Mac to bring up the Preferences dialog box. I normally recommend that people turn this option right here off, Export Clipboard, because when you're copying big image files, it can present a problem. But in our case, we want Export Clipboard to be turned on as by default. So I'll just go ahead and click the Cancel button. And then go to the Edit menu and choose the Copy command, or you can press Control C or Command C on the Mac. Now I'll go ahead and switch back over to Illustrator. And at this point, it's just a matter of going up to the Edit menu and choosing the Paste command, or you can press Control V or Command V on the Mac. Here in the Paste Options dialog box, you want to go ahead and select Compound Path, which is going to give you simpler shapes, not really faster ones. And then click OK. And you'll end up with these two unfilled shapes like so. Just to separate them from the other clutter of the background, I'll go ahead and change their fill colors to, let's say, red, to make them nice and garish on screen. And also notice that they've automatically been combined into a single group, which we can see over here on the far left side of the control panel. So to get rid of that group, go up to the Object menu and choose the Ungroup command, or press Control-Shift-G or Command-Shift-G on the Mac, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to define these objects independently of each other. And now we can select each object independently, which is altogether essential, of course, for defining independent symbols. Anyway, I've already put these guys into this document, with the exception of these two down here. The tricycle, which no longer ships along with Photoshop, it did once upon a time, and then the World Wide Web next door. So I'll go ahead and delete the red shapes from view. And I'll show you two ways to save a shape out as a symbol. One is to put the new symbol in a very specific location. I'll go ahead and increase the size of my panel here. And let's say I want to put this tricycle right next door to the bike. Well, then I'll go ahead and drag it and drop it into place. And you can see that allows you to specify exactly where that symbol goes. And then release, and up comes the symbol options dialog box. Next, you want to name your symbol. I'll just call mine tricycle. And in most cases, that's all you need to do, but I will briefly explain what's going on with the rest of the options. Type is specifically for working with Flash Professional. And Movie Clip just goes ahead and gives the symbol a time code, which is a more flexible way to work. But if you're working just inside of Illustrator, then this option is meaningless. Next door, we've got registration, which, where Illustrator is concerned, affects the default location of the transformation origin when you're scaling or rotating a symbol. And I'll show you what that looks like in a future movie. I'll also explain 9-slice scaling in a future movie. And finally, Align to Pixel Grid is going to go ahead and align the perpendicular segments associated with a symbol to the pixel grid, which is useful if you're going to the web, if you're creating web art. But if you're not creating web art or you have circular or curving objects, then it's more of a pain in the neck than anything else. So I'll go ahead and leave it off, and then I'll click OK. And notice that goes ahead and turns the tricycle into an instance, and we can see the registration mark right there in the center of the object. All right, what if you don't want to drop an object to a specific location? Well, in that case, let's say you want it to appear at the end of the list. Then you go ahead and click on your paths out here in the document window. And you click on the little page icon at the bottom of the symbols panel as well. And I'll just go ahead and call this guy World Wide Web, and then click OK in order to save it off right there at the bottom of the panel and turn the original object into an instance of that symbol. Finally, let's say you need to give a symbol a new name. For example, if I click off this symbol to deselect it, you'll notice in this row, I've got a symbol called Boom1 and another called Boom2, but I neglected to name this one next door. So it's just called New Symbol 164. If you want to change the name of the symbol, don't double click on it, because that's how you change the definition of a symbol. That's how you edit it. To change its name, you drop down to this little dialog box icon at the bottom of the panel and click on it. And then I'll just go ahead and call this guy Sculpted Star and click OK in order to modify its name. And you can see that the new name now appears as a tip here inside the symbols panel. And that's how you create a new symbol, as well as rename an existing one here inside Illustrator.
All right, guys. One thing that I actually didn't, and I forgot to tell you guys, let me open this up again. It was just about naming, and I think I showed you this incorrectly, so my apologies. When you place your symbol in there, you can create the shape that you want your symbol to be in. So let's say I only want my symbol to be in this area. I'm going to draw like a square here, just to cover that area. It doesn't have to have a fill. And you can actually place that shape or that symbol in there. Let me make sure I have this on a layer here. Hold on. Let's see here. All right. I'm going to actually select this first. Oh, you can edit symbols here too. I forgot to mention that too. So you don't have to double click on it either. You can actually go on the fly and edit. Oh, not delete symbol. Edit symbol. It's almost like similar when you double click on it. Placing it. Oh, where did my file go? Lock these layers. For some reason, I should be placing it in this box. I might be doing this incorrectly here. Mhm. Can you hear me? Barely? Okay. Let me take a 5-minute break here. I'm gonna see if I can turn my air off. I think that's kind of what's making it hard to hear here. Let me turn my air down. Give me 5 minutes. I'm gonna drink some water and then I'll kind of show you how to do this since we're I can't hear myself actually talk next to this vent either. So let me turn that off. I'll meet you guys back here in 5 minutes and then I'll kind of explain this over again here. All right, guys? All right, be back in 5 minutes. Okay, can you guys hear me? Maybe a little bit better this time, hopefully. Hopefully here. All right, we're back. And as we were kind of discussing this whole placement of, not very loud, so weird. Check my microphone here. Hold on. All right, maybe I'll just still not very loud. The next time I'm going to check my speakers here on the audio part before I start the lecture. Can you hear me at least? I'm going to try to like speak up a little bit more. Okay. So sorry guys, I'll have to see what's going on with that. Maybe my speakers are turned down low on that audio part of Zoom. I don't want to do the test right now because you guys will hear it and it's kind of a longer test, or else I would. All right, so before we had that quick little break here, I was trying to tell you something that you could place your symbol into a shape, but I think I was confusing it with the patterns that you can also make. The pattern maker, so you know, I was showing you the right way to place symbols by just dragging and dropping. You can also place them on the drop down menu here, place symbol as instance. But if you wanted to apply it to a shape, you know, maybe just to this rectangle here, you're going to have to make a pattern. And pattern options are a little different in how you go about that. I'm going to play a short little video here explaining patterns because I think it's kind of an interesting thing if you wanted to apply it in that way. And then we can definitely go on to discuss this further here. Hold on one second.
So I just created this dope website with Wix. Let me show you how I did it. First up, go to
Hello there, you're watching Dansky, and this is the place to be to develop your creative skills. In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to repeat patterns in Adobe Illustrator. So you can see on screen, I've got a pattern that I've just created. So we have a background made up of a rectangle and lots of different shapes, all drawn using the shape tools and the pen tool, and they all have their own global swatches. So once you've created your pattern, just drag over everything and go to Object and Group. This will group it into one object as you move it around. And there's two ways that you can get to the pattern options. The first one is you can drag your grouped object into the swatches panel, and you'll see it adds it in there. And if you double click that swatch, it will then bring up the pattern options. And the second way is simply by going to Window at the top and down to Pattern Options. And then from the menu at the top, you can select Make Pattern. And it will explain that it's adding this to the swatch panel, and any changes that you do make in the pattern options will be updated to the swatch. So now we get a few options. Let's just zoom out so we can see a little bit more of our pattern. So it shows a dimmed version of where our pattern is going to extend to, and we have the original pattern in the middle. Now we can give this a name, so we could call this cutesy wallpaper, give that swatch a name. And we can also select the tile type. So we have grid selected by default, but we can of course cycle through these different ones depending on the type of pattern or the offset that you're looking for. So if I select brick by column, you can see that I get the brick offset drop down here, and we can even adjust that. So lots of different options. We'll stick with grid for now. Now the width and height is the width and height of our pattern, so we can lock these proportions. So if we change the width to 500, it will update the height proportionally to 500 as well. And you can see that kind of messes around with what we've done. So I think we'll go back to 1000. So it includes all of the elements within our pattern. And of course, we can size the tile to our artwork. And we can move the tile with the artwork as well. So there's lots of different options here. And if you play around with them, you can see they're not doing much here, but you can play around with them depending on the pattern you've created, and you'll see it update in real time. Now this next one is quite important. This is the horizontal and vertical spacing. Again, you can lock these proportions. But if I change the horizontal spacing from 0 to, let's say, 50 pixels, it will then add a 50 pixel gap between each of the elements. And we could do the same for vertical, or we could link these together and we could change these and they will adjust the horizontal and the vertical distance equally. So we'll leave this set as 0 because for this pattern, we want all of the edges to butt up against each other. Now you've got overlap here. Now this controls how the patterns overlap. But as I say, you can see I'm changing it here. It's not doing anything. So it just depends on the type of pattern you create. If you play around with these options, you can see in real time what kind of effect it's going to have. So some options will affect other patterns differently to how they affect others. Now you can adjust the dim copies bit here. You can of course deselect that if you'd like to see the pattern repeated in all its full color glory. And you can show the tile edge. So we can see the edge with our artboard anyway, but you can show this marked with a blue line. So this represents the tile, and then each of these segments here, you can see where I'm moving my mouse, that is marked as a tile. So at the moment we've got 3 by 3, which of course gives us 9, but we can of course change this. So let's go for 7 by 7. And when you're happy, just go up to the top and you can select Save as Copy. I'll save it as a new swatch. You can select Done or Cancel. So let's just select Done. And then we can create a new shape. So let's just left click and drag with the rectangle tool. And we'll deselect that stroke and give this a fill. Let's pick our new cutesy wallpaper swatch. And there we go. So you can see that it takes the swatch that we created and then applies that pattern effect. And we can, of course, go back into the swatches panel, double click that swatch, and we can adjust this in real time. So we could even reduce the gap to -20. And you'll see it brings everything closer together. So there's lots of different options there depending on the type of pattern that you're trying to create. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please feel free to leave any questions or comments down below. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Take care, and I'll see you next time.
All right, so that kind of explained a little bit of what I was trying to show you, although I was showing you in a different way with the symbols. So if you wanted to make a pattern to apply, say, a symbols pattern to a background like I was trying to do, you have to create a pattern first, okay? So I was kind of showing you the wrong way at first. I apologize. So, you know, if you have a symbol, like a textured symbol that you want to create as a pattern, that's the steps that you would take. You would go ahead and add that to your swatches. Create your pattern first and then add it to your swatches. And then you can apply it to your, you know, whatever shape that you want to apply it to. Say this background's rectangle, for instance, can be added in there. So I was kind of showing you in a different way there, but nevertheless, you know, it is, that's how you would place that pattern in there. I'm trying to figure out so many swatches in here. Let me throw this in here real quick. So I would just do like a new document, just do 4 by 4. Create my symbols. Let's see, what was that? Grime? Is that grime? No. That was something else. Let me see. Yeah, there's different, you can get free symbols just to download in your, oh, here's an interesting one too. In your pack, or like vector packs. And you can import it into Illustrator. All right, which one was it? I can't remember. What did I pick here, guys? Oh, artistic textures, that's what it was. So let's say I have this texture and I want it to be more of a pattern, even smaller. Let's see here. So I can apply it to, say, that background. I'm going to copy this. I'll drag it over. Let's actually do the drag it over here. Select all, group. Alt drag, kind of gives a copy, and it overlaps there. Select all, there we go. Oops, get that too big here. So I'm just kind of making a copy of this because I want it to be smaller texture. And I can always flip these around if I want it to look a little different. Rotate. Just have to ungroup them here. Okay, I'm going to do a select all group. And like he said, you can put it in the swatches or make patterns. I'm just going to drag and drop in here. So, right when we're ready to make our texture, let's draw out a box here. You can even go to pattern options too and just make a pattern as well. But we're going to go back actually because we have to go back this way if we want to do it that way. All right, so let's go back into here. I think we have to have this in the same artboard too. So let me, I can't switch this over. Let me copy and paste this over. There we go. Now I'm going to drag this in here. We got our new pattern. Swatch. And then you just select that and it pretty much applies it to that whole shape. So if you were kind of wanting to play around with that option, you definitely can do that. And then, you know, obviously, if you wanted to dial down the opacity or anything like that, you could, oops, my appearance. You can play around with that in your appearance area here. You can play also kind of rearrange the layers if you wanted to, if you wanted that texture to be behind. But that kind of gives it a nice overall unity in itself too. Any questions about that? Something to play around with? No? Okay. You guys are easy. All right. Don't forget, I'm going to be kind of wrapping it up now for you guys to take center stage if you want to share your work or get feedback. But don't forget in regards to your assignment too, what goes into the whole design process. We kind of talked about this yesterday as well. We are just good. You guys are great. So easy. Research, we'll see, I guess, after this week, right? With all your projects kind of accumulating. Oh, I think you guys will be great. Hopefully, all right. So research, don't forget define and develop, if I can talk. We talked about these steps yesterday. You know, just make sure you're going through all of these steps. And part of that is kind of getting feedback. So I'm going to open up to you guys if you want to share anything that you're working on or thinking about or have questions about. Now is the time to take advantage of that. All right. So who wants to show their work or share their screen? Whatever you guys want to do. right, Lily, you want to go ahead, and I will stop sharing, and I'm going to unmute you as well. And you can go ahead and share your screen.
See over here.
Hi, Lily.
Hello.
Okay, so you're doing the spine and the back cover. Okay. Wow, you got a lot of the details in there.
I'm kind of stuck now.
Can anybody want to give her some feedback here? Can we see what you were inspired by? I think that would probably help a little bit to know the style that you're going for here.
I haven't completely finished it yet.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is a first draft, so don't, freak out.
That wasn't it.
It's all part of the process. Okay.
So that's kind of what I was looking at, this one right here in the corner.
Okay, yeah. I definitely can see where you're going, kind of you like that whole scripty, like, yeah, I get the whole style here, and knowing this, it's nice to see the, kind of the direction that you're going. Do you have a hidden key in the foliage? Marla's asking. Welcome, Marla. Did you just get in here?
That one was my mess up. I couldn't figure out how to get rid of the perspective stuff, so it kind of...
Okay, see that little perspective on the upper left-hand corner?
Yeah.
Did you try clicking on that?
At least she has shoes on. Good morning. Frozen now? Thought by lunch. Have a good
Can you click on it?
I get nothing.
Nothing.
So I just started a whole new one, which was this one. Oops, not that one.
All right. So what do you guys think? You want to give her some feedback based on what she was inspired by? Michael said, are you going to do any mock-ups? I like the color.
I hadn't thought about it, but probably, yeah. For my final one, yeah.
Mm-hmm. What do you guys think about the typeface she's using for the main information, like the title? See, okay, so I get where you're going with that. The just to let you know, that specific font is very overused.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that you can probably find a very similar font that would definitely elevate your design a little bit more. That you can still go with the script, but just use something that's not as, I guess, it's kind of comparable to the Comic Sans font, mind you, because it's so cliche, it's so overly used.
Right.
So if you try to find something a little bit more unique that has that same script.
So the other one that I like to use is the Harrington.
Okay. Yeah, I would just, experiment with that. See what you can, and how can you implement that into the Secret Garden? Maybe secret is bigger, you know, in regards to, you know, pull a focal point into the actual typeface itself too. Instead of having it all one size, maybe kind of play around with a hierarchy of the words. Michael said, who's the audience?
It's for this particular one, it's smaller. Well, not small kids, but like 10 to 15.
Okay. What did you illustrate those flowers?
Yeah.
Very good. More younger.
It was in my.
It almost looks, yeah, I mean, it has a very old look to it. Maybe play around with the color of the background a little bit more. If you maybe can find something like, I like that peachy color, maybe playing around with that instead of the dark color. And I know you're trying to get some contrast in there, but maybe try different darker colors back there other than the brown. See if that kind of changes it too.
Okay.
You know, just experiment and see. But I like the flowers. I think that maybe making some of them extra big, pulling some of the flowers out a little bit more, making it not look as unified across the board might make it look more visually interesting. Okay. You know, really blowing up one flower and having it like off-centered, and then the rest kind of aren't as patterned in there as you have. I don't know, just try to play around with it. It's a secret, you know, so you're just like, you want to show us that mystery. So it doesn't have to be balanced or, you know, symmetric. It could be asymmetrical. That'll give it some movements and make it more dynamic looking in that regards. So just a little bit as far as the overall composition is concerned. You can play around with that. But I think you have the right elements going on here. You could just focus on the front cover. You're kind of going beyond, but which is fine because this is, you know, can definitely be a portfolio piece. So you can keep what you have and just kind of refine it from here. Okay. The back cover, that body copy, can be a lot smaller. What do you have it set at?
I believe it is 14, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, that can go down to like, I would go no more than 12 points with that.
Oh, it's 18.
Yeah, especially if it's for a younger audience. I would make that, you know, 11 or 12 points with maybe like a 14-point letting.
Joan eventually brought Jeffrey to her home and introduced him to Liz and her two small children.
That's why I put it so small. I mean, big.
No, but you want to embrace that negative space.
Okay.
That's kind of what makes it look more refined, less bulky, maybe more, you know, it frames your elements so that it looks more important instead of having everything so big on the page, especially in body copy. You don't want it to be huge unless it's geared towards maybe older people.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because think about it, when you're holding the book, you know, you're holding it within 5, 6, 7 inches of your face. So it doesn't necessarily have to be very big.
Someone like Jeffrey Wilson, she's having this
Okay.
relationship with pretty much a prime suspect.
So do me a big favor, go to the right side of your front cover and make one of your flowers really, really big. Like, I don't know, blow it up about 60, 70. I'll show you kind of where to stop here. Real big, kind of pull it up. Yep, keep going.
Who were married or in a dating relationship where the woman was not being convicted emotionally.
Keep going, real big, like off of the page.
He would fill in where the main guy.
Doggies are going crazy.
Yeah. Hey.
Things changed. Joan wanted more.
So bigger, smaller?
You can go a little bit bigger. Make it go off the page on the right. Doesn't have to be centered. There you go, right there. Good. You can pull it up a little bit. There you go. And then just play around with your layout. by Francis, the author, the by author, that can be much smaller. That can be 11 points, 12 points.
Okay.
And it could be in, you know, a different typeface. It doesn't have to be in the curls.
When I'm with you, I'm perfect. We're perfect. You know it.
That looks so tiny.
You can pull that down more so it's towards the bottom. And then now you can kind of play around with your headline, which, you know, maybe your headline is the focal point. Yeah, you could always, you know, play around with the flower, maybe having the flower at the bottom, the big flower, you know, rearranging your elements. What if the was on the first line, secret was bigger on the second, and garden was on the bottom, like not as big? Kind of stacking it in that regards. Centering it. Get rid of the spaces in front of them, in front of each word that you have there. Just kind of get rid of those spaces.
Wilson tells detectives that as soon as Joan fell for him, David Shannon took notice. Sex was one thing. Falling in love.
You're going to make secret larger than the other words.
Okay.
And of course, you know, play around with the typeface, play around with the leading.
You can't be in my house. I told Joan already, no more one-on-ones.
Just take your type tool and select just the word secret. There you go.
Stop and get the hell out. He did not want Joan to see Jeffrey anymore. He and Joan began to keep away.
And then make the and garden much smaller.
I try to cut it off.
And those can even, the and garden can be in this totally different typeface. Secret can be the one that you have in the more decorative typeface.
I forgot what.
You can make that a little, yeah, you can make that like 36, the garden one, instead of what the is, because the is like a secondary word. And then just adjust your leading in between each line of text so that it comes together a little bit.
Okay.
And of course, the typeface is really going to change everything. So if you change your typeface, you're going to want to play around with that.
Okay.
So a couple things just to kind of, you know, make it look more dynamic, a little bit off-centered, so it's kind of more visually interesting.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I noticed that I use Harrington a lot in a lot of my projects. You don't think I'm overusing that one too much?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you were saying.
I noticed that in a lot of my projects, I use Harrington a lot. You don't think that using that same one would be overusing that font?
Yeah, I would probably, you know, experiment with different typefaces that might be something that you wouldn't have used in another project, especially if you're going to put it in a portfolio.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so just play around with it. You might want to pull that flower down below and kind of vary your flowers so some are really small and some are a little bigger. You know, make it a little bit more dynamic. Play around with that whole orientation.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, yeah, you have the elements coming together. You just have to rearrange your hierarchy of your elements.
Okay, sounds good.
Did you have any other questions? Good job, though. Thanks for sharing your stuff.
Okay, thank you.
It's kind of fun to work on stuff like that, especially a book cover. I always enjoy doing. I just finished a real book cover for somebody, and I love doing book covers. So it's definitely nice. It can be very creative and fun, depending on the subject, I guess, right?
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Lily. Great job. All right. Does anybody else want to share anything or want extra feedback? All right. Let me stop sharing. Michael, you can take over and let's mute Lily. Michael, you can unmute. It's all you.
You hear me?
Yep.
All right. I'm doing a billboard.
Awesome.
Can you see this?
Yep.
All right. Now this is just really, really rough. My color scheme is actually probably going to be a red, white, and blue.
Okay.
I'm going for. I don't know if I want to go more toward the historical version. But I was just eating dinner and I had an idea of doing some like Philly slang. Because there's like we say Jeet yet, which is JEET and then YET
Okay.
for did you eat yet?
Right.
And Philly's very known for their restaurants and their food culture. What was the other thing I wanted to do? Yeah, you always have their sports, stuff like that.
Okay, so you have to narrow down a concept first before you start thinking about even the elements that you're using.
I think I'm going more towards the cultural, like something like Jeet yet or I can't remember the other thing I was doing. I gotta find where, but I'd like to definitely put a skyline in there, because I love Philly skyline. I'm from Philly, so I love everything about Philly.
Awesome.
Some William Penn there. The love statue. I really want to throw that in there, whereas the slang thing goes. Not you're going to love Philadelphia, but you gonna love Philadelphia.
Okay.
Like just the letter U and then GONNA.
Okay, just make sure that if you're going that route or route, that you're making the elements align with that. So if I think that's kind of a fun concept, but what I'm seeing here is more historic looking. So make sure your elements kind of match.
Oh no, I know that. I mean, this was just the
Right, just the
very
beginning.
rough things. I was just doing image searches, and
Okay.
I'm very historical about Philly, because it makes me mad that people from Philly don't even understand their history. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I'm really thinking about going more towards the slang way now that I like being comical too.
Mm-hmm. You could do really simple patterns in the background of, icons that relate to Philly.
Oh yeah.
Very bold and bright and something very different than you would not normally see in this, historic town.
I, well, I'd say a lot of red, but I'm not gonna go that way.
Yeah, I mean, you can go totally differently if you're, kind of.
Everybody thinks Philly's like a violent place, and it's really not, but not any more than any other major city, I guess.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, what are you? Is there any other things that you want to talk about, or you're just kind of telling us what you're thinking about?
I'm just going off of my thoughts.
Okay.
Like I don't know, you think the slang version would be a good way to go? I mean, if you're driving down a highway and you saw a billboard, because it would make you think, and it's got to be real quick because you're going at least 60 miles an hour.
Yeah, and it would only be effective if you can read it quickly, and if the elements, and I'm talking about the elements, the color, the whatever you use in it, kind of unify together nicely.
Yeah.
So you could do kind of like very bold typography and have your illustration inside the typography, but it would have to be readable. See, that would be the concern of mine. So is there a style of illustration that you're looking at for this particular concept if you were to do that?
I was going to go more of a graffiti type way, especially
Okay.
with the slang version, just because Philly is, well, I mean, it's back and forth, but the original modern graffiti artist, Cornbread, came from Philadelphia,
Okay.
like back in the 60s or 70s or whatever it was. But
So if you go with that style, I probably would steer away from the bell, just kind of go all out with the whole youthfulness of the graffiti art. Just make sure it's readable.
oh yeah,
Yeah. I definitely could see that being very interesting and a really nice portfolio piece if done effectively.
but I mean, graffiti's kind of making a comeback. You see it a lot in advertising, but it's I feel like the 90s are coming back now. So
Right. I think it all comes back around. I would be really careful with putting graffiti on the bell just because, some people don't really take graffiti in, we kind of, it can be looked at as an art form, but then it can also be looked at as kind of like a bad connotation to it. So what I would do is not really place it on any type of thing that like a bell or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
I want to do that, but like I definitely want a skyline in there. Yeah, I think I'll go the graffiti slang way.
Mm-hmm. And
Now I really think about it.
And you can use like simple brick texture or something like that in the background that's more patterned. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this all has to be done with Illustrator.
Yeah, you have to actually do all of your elements. You can't you can't trace it, do an auto trace. You have to do everything, with the tools.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, no, that would be I'm gonna go the more artistic way then.
Right.
So,
Very
all
good.
right.
So just
Well, I need to hear.
my whole suggestion is really go research what you want to do the graffiti style, but really kind of start sketching out some ideas to kind of figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, no, I will. Yeah, because Philly has a totally different style than like New York or Los Angeles. So,
Right, exactly.
if you're a graffiti person, you'll know.
Yep. And then the logo, you could just simply have a very simple font with the name of it. It can be a word mark. It doesn't have to be, this big logo mark. It could be just the word itself in a specific font, a very simple font.
Yeah.
Very good.
You know any fonts that I'm trying to think of some fonts.
I would say, I wouldn't put it in a graffiti font. I would put your headline in the graffiti font, and then I would use a very simple like universe font for that Philadelphia word. Something very simple and neutral, nothing stylistic. Because you're going to put the style into your headline, I would make your word mark very simple. So
I'm gonna actually use the graffiti as more of a background.
Yeah. Okay.
Just because graffiti is very recognizable, it's very bright, colorful.
Right.
And most people really like it. It's like abstract, so
Right.
It'll catch the eye.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I'd go more with a more professional font, not like Times Roman, but
something that's more readable than
yeah. So
I gotcha.
All right.
Very good.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, no problem. I hope it helped. It's kind of just make sure you're doing your research and gathering that information. That definitely will help you.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks, Michael.
All right, thank you.
All right, I think Marla, do you have anything that you want to share? You guys are great, by the way. Thanks for sharing all your stuff. Definitely helps other people, watching this and who are in here kind of think of ideas. Okay. You just got started on the mood board. All right, you guys. Well, I'm going to wrap it up so you guys can get rolling on this. And don't forget to do your research, do your process steps. Be inspired by things that you see and kind of pull from that. Any other questions? That's what you've been doing. Good. Yeah. That makes a big difference. All right. Thank you guys so much. And I'll be seeing you guys on the discussion boards. I appreciate you guys being very patient with me today with the shifting of the lecture time. you're working with me. It's been a crazy couple weeks. It's going to be I think I'm going to have an actual routine schedule this third week of September. So it's just kind of craziness until then. So kind of bear with me here. You're welcome. No problem. You guys have a wonderful night, and I'll be seeing you guys on the discussion boards. All right. Have a good night.